Are you in the Army? You have your Montgomery GI Bill, but you don't want to touch it, and you want to go to school? Well, tuition assistance program may be the thing for you. Watch this video.
This is basically what you get in your eligibility, okay? So, in the days of old, it was a yearly amount that you would get, and you could spend it however you wanted. Now, they've reduced that yearly amount to $4,000, but they've also limited the way you can actually spend it. So now, if you're going to a very cheap school and you just want to knock out 100 classes, well, you can't, because we're capping you out at 16 semester hours, which is basically, if you're going to a normal semester hour school that's like 3 credits per class, that's about 5 credits with 1 credit to spare. Okay, so if you do the math on that, that's $1,600. However, if you didn't use all that money, there is another way to use that. It's not part of the brief, but it is credentialing assistance. There is something else that you can use that for should you not want to use TA, okay? Tuition assistance pays for tuition only. If your school charges you tech fees, student fees, campus fees, and I've seen them all, they can range up to $300 per term or more. We don't touch that. That's on you. If your class costs $300 per semester hour, we're paying that $250. The rest is on you. So do your research before choosing a school, especially graduate schools. Okay, so a lot of most graduate schools will be well over $250 per semester hour. So if that's where you are, we do have lists. There are resources to find schools that are on the cheaper end. Just be aware of that. Okay. So you'll see undergraduate studies, how much do you get? So if you are pursuing your first associate's or bachelor's degree, do you need an associate to get a bachelor's degree? Just
No.
putting that out there, because a lot of soldiers go, I thought I needed that. I'm like, nope, you don't. So, but you can pursue an associate's, that's fine, and move into the bachelor's degree. So if you're pursuing your first associate's bachelor's degree, you get up to 130 semester hours of college credits towards that, which means that if you decide to change your mind a couple of times and you lose some credits and you're still covered. I've been doing this since about the year 2000, and I've seen only 3 people hit this maximum. I can literally remember them. I'm like, what have you been doing? Switching my degree plan all the time. So you do get 130 semester hours to pursue that, but again, the fiscal year limit remains the same, 16 semester hours every year, okay? That doesn't change. You must maintain a 2.0 grade point average. C's get degrees, although you probably should aim a little higher. D's are considered a failing grade. I say air quotes because a lot of schools that's still a passing grade, but for the Army, it is not a transferable grade. So if we've paid for it and you're gonna switch schools, the school's not gonna take it, we've basically just wasted our money. So that is a recoupable grade, which means the Army's coming back for their money.
I have a question.
Yes?
What if a soldier has, to go on deployment and has to drop a class and receives a failing grade, right? Do they have to pay back the Army that money, or will the Army absorb that loss?
Well, it depends.
Okay.
So that's a great question, because that is part of the tuition thing. A lot of soldiers assume, like, okay, now if you know you're deploying and you know there's not going to be good internet out there, don't do that, because the military withdrawal, or also called the tuition waiver, functions under very specific guidelines if it's unforeseen. So if I just got back from Kuwait August 1st, and I was there for 3 years, internet's great. However, if you're like, oh, well, they pushed me forward to Iraq or to Saudi or wherever, and you're like, in the middle of my class, and when I got there, the internet was just not sustainable, that is a reason why. We had a lot of COVID reasons at the time. Also, Red Cross messages, health. So if you had surgery over there and you had need, you're convalescing, those are all considered military withdrawals, but again, it's not automatic. A lot of soldiers believe that the commander, because they have to sign the form, that they are the approving authority. They are not. Even if the commander says, don't agree, it's the education services officer who makes the final decision. So if they see your excuse, your reasoning, and they go, yep, that's totally good, and they can waive that money. It is not guaranteed. So you have to actually put down why, what happened, and how it was unforeseen and out of your control, okay? That is absolutely. Now the failing grade can also fall under the same circumstances. I've run across that a lot. I was just sent up last minute or this last minute, and when I got there, I couldn't contact anybody. So my class just sort of, we're like, well, why did you drop it? Well, I couldn't. Okay, fair enough. That is considered a tuition waiver, which is an after the fact situation. Can take a little bit longer. If you've already started getting recouped, or if you have been recouped, by the way, you can go back 3 years for these, to correct these. You're like, you're here today, you went, what now? I could have just come and talk to us. We'll see if it's something that's workable. Same form, get it signed, submit it. If it gets approved, they will unrecoup you. They will pay you back the money that you paid, and that grade will be taken off that your Army grade point average, not your school, but your Army. And some schools, if you do get a military waiver, some schools will actually pull that off of your GPA for them too. But that's between you and the school. But yes,
Cool.
that's
Thank you.
absolutely a possibility, okay? So graduate studies, any questions about undergraduate? Because that will also apply for graduate school. Any handouts? Okay. Graduate studies, you get up to 39 semester hours to complete a master's degree. Most master's degrees are around 36 semester hours. They can be a little lower, a little higher, depending on what you're pursuing, but you get 39. So some soldiers have come to me and said, hey, I'm missing a couple of classes to get admitted into this graduate program. Will we pay for those classes? Yes. However, they will actually be taken out of your graduate allotment. So if your degree is 36 semester hours and we're giving you 39, you only have 3 credits to work with. But yes, we can, if your school says you need this and this, it is something that we can pay for, okay? Admissions into military schools, PA programs, we call them special program paths. So if you're trying to do something that is military career specific, okay? And you're like, well, I already have my bachelor's degree and I need 5 science classes to get into the PA program. Okay, we'll pay for those as well. So those are possibilities a lot of people don't know about. Just come and talk to us about them, okay? But be careful with the graduate studies, because if you do that for certain situations, it might feed into your graduate allotment, and you might not want to do that. We still pay $250 per semester hours. Your GPA, however, has to be 3.0. B's get degrees in this case. If you get a C, a D, or an F, that is a recoupable offense, okay? So be very careful about that as well. It's not your grade point, well, I mean, your grade point average has to stay at a 3.0, but just because you get 1 C won't necessarily drop your grade point average, but that course itself is now considered a failing grade because, again, they don't usually transfer to other graduate programs, okay? And the one that most people don't know about are the academic certificates, not to be confused with licenses, certifications. That's a whole other thing, okay? Academic certificates. So I've seen a lot of, people who already have their bachelor's, master's, who's like, I'm done. There's nothing else for me to use. I'm like, well, so even if you have your PhD, it doesn't matter to me. If you want to pursue an undergraduate or a graduate academic certificate, you get 21 semester hours to do so. Same thing, $250 per semester hour. If you already have your master's, you're like, can I get an undergraduate certificate? Because I wanna study this and I have no, yeah, absolutely. Now, if you have no degree and you want to pursue a graduate certificate, well, the school won't allow that, okay? But for us, and you get one every 5 years. So if you complete it and it's marked as completed, in 5 years' time, if you want to pursue another one, you can, okay? Now let's talk ADSOs. Do I have answers?
No, yeah. So
Got officers in the room? So this applies to officers, obviously. When you use tuition assistance, you incur a 2-year service obligation. They do not tack on time to your service. They run concurrently with any other ADSO or just your current time. So let's say your class ends June 15th. Do you have 2 years from June 15th? Yeah? You're good. And so on and so on. And it's like that for every class, because otherwise you'd stay until you're like 100 eventually at some point. So
Paycheck.
it's 2 years. It is 2. Can't kick you out. 197. Yeah. Okay. So the ADSO is important for tuition assistance. Currently, we are using a system that is not ideal. Army Ignited. Anybody dealing with it at all?
It's getting better.
It's actually taken a quick downturn right recently, yes, for soldiers starting. Okay, so that's what you get. The next page will be eligibility. Okay, the ADSO I covered. Eligibility, but I will talk about how to request TA in Army Ignited. Tier 1 eligibility, you basic AIT, you just finished, you're in on brand new, you're Tier 1 eligible, go ahead and pursue the degree. If you come in with a bachelor's degree, we did not pay for it in any way, shape, or form. You are Tier 1 eligible to pursue your master's. But I want another bachelor's. Move on. You won't pay for something you already have, but you didn't pay for it. Doesn't matter. Onwards and upwards, okay? So you are Tier 1 eligible for a graduate program. If, however, we did pay for one class, one credit of your bachelor's degree, and you want to jump right into your master's degree, that's Tier 2 eligibility. That is a little newer too in the past years. So now you have to hit a career milestone, which is for enlisted, complete ALC, for warrants, Warrant Officer Advanced, and for officers, Captain's Career Course. However, one quick second. However, if you were prior enlisted and you're now a warrant or an officer, and you hit that milestone in that rank structure, you're going to be grandfathered into this eligibility. So you don't have to wait until you hit that. Okay. I've seen especially warrants for whatever reason in Kuwait. One guy was like, I paid for almost my whole master's degree. I was like, no, you're eligible. So just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. You had a question?
Does it count for what level are you if you had student loan repayment?
The student loan repayment program, that affects the GI Bill, not TA at all. So if you got the LRP for active duty, then you're not eligible for the Montgomery GI Bill, and you have to serve a certain amount of time before you become eligible to start earning the post 9/11. But it does not affect tuition assistance, okay? All right, any questions so far about eligibility? All right, moving on to the next page, which will be, how do I request tuition assistance? He's a fan, obviously. Army Ignited is the new platform. It replaces Go Army Ed, and I long for the days of Go Army Ed. It is, in some ways, I agree, there are certain things that make it easier, but in other ways, it's just, first of all, you need to have a .mil email. I'm assuming everybody here has one.
Yes.
But
yes.
certain MOSs don't. E4s and below right now, from what I understand, or you're not getting an email. Well, if they don't have one, they can't use their benefit.
And there's a waiver that we utilize for that.
We're trying here, yes.
Yes,
We're having
exception.
a lot of issues on the outside. So I'm hoping that this becomes something that we can work with. But even if it's mail.mil, whatever, that's fine. But you have to have your military email because it verifies that you're in fact in the military, and it will match the email that's attached to your CAC. If you use your personal email, I've seen people create an account, but then we inevitably hit a wall. It's because this website is allotting federal funds, and it needs to know, like, who's, Jimbo@gmail.com. I don't know that you're in the military. So eventually it will stop you. So if you have created an account with a personal email, you must delete the login.gov associated with that and create it with the .mil. So that's the first thing, creating that Army Ignited account. Then what's different about Army Ignited than from Go Army Ed is you have to get set up with your school first. So you actually research your schools, and we can help you with that. Find your school, apply to your school, be accepted to your school. Then you go into your Army Ignited account and create an education path. This education path is just you telling us what you want to study. I want a bachelor's degree in underwater basket weaving. Fine, approved. But then the school has to do the final approval. So if you're not a student there, they're gonna go, nope. And so you're nowhere. We are having issues also with the area of study. So when you're putting in your major, you're like, my school's not gonna pop up. My school doesn't pop up. I'm like, give us a call. Okay, just give us a call. Because you have to choose the correct area of study that matches what your school has in the federal database. And why would you know that specifically? So we do have a website we can go look. So if you're having issues, yes? If you're having issues pulling up, choosing the degree plan and having the school populate, we can probably help you with that. Is that what?
Oh, no, ma'am, I have a different question.
Oh, go ahead.
So, I know that we got Jefferson Community College
Yes.
out here in Watertown.
Mhm.
Are there any schools that come on post and do face-to-face classes?
JCC is the only one currently. This stopped during COVID,
Right.
but JCC is the only one that has started it back up. UMGC is also on post, University of Maryland Global Campus, and SUNY Empire State. They're also on post. Their representatives are here. However, they have not resumed face-to-face classes yet. UMGC is still doing a hybrid. Okay, but hopefully they're going. I think today my BSO said yesterday in the fall, UMGC will start offering actual instructor-led classes at the education center.
Tuition assistance actually turns over the fiscal year?
Yep. Yeah, 1 October to 30 September. That's when. And no, you don't get to drag what you didn't use over and, ooh, I have 6,000 now. No, it's use it or lose it. New fiscal year comes around, you get a new batch of money.
So use it.
Use it if you can. So you create your account, set up with the school, put in your education path. Then you have to register for your classes with the school directly, which again is for a lot of schools different from Go Army Ed. Then the school will load your course information into Army Ignited. Then once it populates, it can take a day or two, depends on your school. Then you go request tuition assistance prior to the start of class. That is the regulation, by the way. You must request TA prior to the start of class. However, Army Ignited is still in its growing stages, let's just say. So we're functioning under a blanket exception to policy at this point. So if you're having issues with your login, my classes didn't populate. Trust me, I do a lot of help desk cases. I've seen them all. Don't worry. As long as you are eligible, and I'm not talking about tier 1 or tier 2. If you're flagged not eligible for TA, nothing we can do about that. That's not on us. If you're flagged, that's the biggest one. If you have a TA GPA hold from days of old and that's populating over, you're not eligible for TA unless you talk to somebody like me and we can do a manual recalculation with other courses that you might have that can boost your GPA, right? So as long as you're baseline eligible for TA, if you can't get the TA requested prior to the start date, it will roll into what's called an ETP tool. We haven't had one since November and they're trying to work this out, but it will create a request.
Can a commander stop you from requesting tuition assistance and going to school?
Flag.
Just the flag, not a company commander signing a document.
We won't know about it. There's nothing we can do about that. If something pops up in a soldier's record, we just do it. But if you, I'm assuming in the military, if you say don't do something and you do it anyways, there might be some kind of, but there's nothing that will block their.
So there's not a need for a memorandum of agreement, understanding to be signed by a commander saying that you can start
remember
class.
those, don't you?
Yes.
The TA statement of understanding.
Right.
Oh, no. That's
Okay.
just e-signed by the soldier, like, bleep. They don't
Awesome.
even read it, actually. But back in the day, I remember, signed by the commander. And that wasn't actually giving permission, but it was basically to say that the commander
Is aware.
saying that these are the rules, the soldier's aware of it, and that they're aware that the soldier wants to start college. And back in the day, they just wouldn't sign the TA forms. But now, since it's all electronic, the soldier barely even needs me. Which is not always a good idea, because then they end up with issues later. But everything is self, propelled. They can just do everything on their own. Progress. Okay. All right, so once you've requested the TA comes through us, if it's approved, no problem. The exception of policy tool takes much longer. Classes from January are still not pushed through this system. So people are like, hey, where's the school money? I'm like, it hasn't even been processed yet. So, and then once it does, it takes months again after. So again, we're highly encouraging you to request the TA prior to the start date. Should that not happen, a lot of soldiers are like, oh, well, I missed my start. That's okay, go ahead and take the class, okay? Don't think you have to stop, it's not your fault, okay? Any questions about that, the process? Okay, and the other thing that I was asked to discuss was top-up. Top-up is not something that I particularly recommend quickly and out of hand, just like, oh, use top-up, because it does tap into your VA benefits. So, that's a larger discussion on a case-by-case basis. What are your long-term goals? Are you transferring it at some point? What do you want to do? But if you're in a situation where you are like, I want to knock this out, I need to get this done, you don't have any other funding like FAFSA, Federal Student Aid, if you didn't qualify for a Pell Grant, and you just don't want to pay out of pocket, you can, if you're going to a school that costs more, you can use top-up for that balance. And then you can also continue to use the VA when your TA is done, if you want to knock out more classes, and they'll pay the cost of the class. But that's a whole other kind of situation. I created a side-by-side, so depending on which GI Bill benefit you're wanting to use, if it's the Montgomery GI Bill, how many of you know if you have the Montgomery GI Bill?
Yeah.
How many of you don't know? You're like, maybe? I don't know. Okay. Okay, so the Montgomery GI Bill is the one that you would have paid $100 a month for 12 months when you enlisted. And you're like,
You
I
have
don't
it, Sart.
Probably do.
That's how you, yeah, you have it.
Okay, so it's possible, but it is possible. Check your initial contract. There is a sheet. It's the MGI Bill. It's the Montgomery GI Bill paper. That's all that's on it. You either sign I want it or I don't. Or you can check with finance to go back into your records to see if in your first year there was a $100 allotment. That's the other way you can check. So if you have the Montgomery GI Bill, this is how it would work, and I can go over that real quickly. And then if you want to use your post 9/11, this is how it would work. So again, complicated conversation, probably best on a one-by-one. But if you look at the Montgomery GI Bill, it says you'll get so the top of the way it works is that we pay our $750 or whatever, and then top up will cover just that balance. So the Montgomery GI Bill will actually pay it to you, and you pay it to the school. They will not give you extra money. They won't give you the flat rate that you get as a veteran. It's just that dollar amount. And it's only going to charge your GI Bill. So if it's $500 and the monthly flat rate is currently about $2,000, then it's only going to charge you a quarter of a month. It's not going to charge you a month's worth of benefits for that $500. Does that make sense? Okay. For that month. So it's not like a throwaway. The post 9/11, however, it is. So you want to be careful about which one you choose. But I do want to point one thing out. If you say, well, then I'll use my Montgomery GI Bill, I hope you have a second enlistment under your belt, because if you apply for the Montgomery GI Bill and you only have one enlistment and you're not going to re-enlist, then you are finishing with the Montgomery GI Bill. You cannot switch over to the post 9/11. If, however, you have more than one enlistment and you say, you know what, the Montgomery works better for me right now, let me do this, and then later I'm going to switch over to the post 9/11, not a problem. But that's why this is a little bit more like, it just depends on you specifically, okay? So the Montgomery GI Bill is the better one to use financially, because it's not going to charge you as much off of your GI Bill. The post 9/11, it'll actually give you money for books too. But if you're using $500 for the month, it'll charge you almost probably the month's, not necessarily the whole month, but it will charge you a lot more of your benefits. So you're going to actually burn it out a lot more quickly. So if you had plans for it later, you're just going to have less of it. But again, that's more detailed conversation, I think, individually. And the VA at Clark Hall could probably also help with that, okay? Any questions about this, about the top up? For me, as counselors, or not just for me, but as counselors, we're not quick to recommend this method. I want you to have exhausted other options first. Then, if you're really motivated, you really have to, and there's nothing else available, and you don't have the money to pay out of pocket, then I'd say, all right, let's set this up, okay? Any questions about this? Did I cover everything?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
What happens if you withdraw or fail a class? How does the government get their money back?
How does HIT?
Okay, so it just takes it out?
So, yeah. Right now, bit of a problem. Some people are in recoupment as of like last year, but nothing's happening because Army Ignited doesn't have the functionality for it. You can still take classes. We're just waiving that. But normally, what happens is you'll be, there's a recoupment that goes into Army Ignited, and then it would just trigger it. It would send it to DFAS if you haven't taken action on it before a certain amount of time. And then after that, it'll just default to a $50 payment for however many months it takes, unless you're getting out sooner. Then it'll like up the monthly amount. Or you can set up your payment. So if you're tracking it, again, when Army Ignited functions better, you can actually choose a payment method. You can say take it out in one lump sum. If the payment has already started, I've heard that you can go to DFAS and just write a check. But you have to go to finance and say, hey, that debt that I have, can I just pay it off? You can do that too. At least you could. Not DFAS. Finance is here, right? So maybe.
Not that part of finance.
Okay.
I'm the make him $1 million finance.
Any other questions? Yep.
I actually have one, ma'am. So, does in-state tuition apply to the cost of the courses? So, like, if you wanted to, like, would it be based off of where you're currently serving or your home of record
For TA or the VA?
for TA?
TA, it depends on the school. Most schools out there, if you're active duty, they tend to give you the in-state rate, but I cannot speak for every school. We only pay $250 per credit. So if
Okay.
they're giving you the out-of-state rate and that jumps it up to $1,000 a credit, which I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe don't use
pick a different school is what I would recommend. But yes, it's just $250 per credit. When it comes to the VA, that's a whole other story. They'll give you the in-state rate. Okay. Anything else? I've encroached on your time enough.
I have one last
Yes,
question,
ma'am.
ma'am. Have you seen situations in which, an associate's degree may be $175, and then the bachelor's maybe $250, and then the master's, it's increased to like $350 per credit hour?
5, 6, 7, 800 per credit.
Yes.
That's a bit more in the ballpark of what a master's degree
Right.
normally is. Absolutely, absolutely. There are a lot of graduate schools out there that will make it military friendly and drop it down to closer or near to University of Arkansas. AMU drops it down to $250, no books, no nothing. There is a list that exists. I should have brought it actually. There is a list. I can email it to you if you'd like.
Yes, please, ma'am.
Of schools that kind of bring it down or are closer to the 250, if not 250 or like 300, 275. There are schools out there that will do that. So the one thing you want to do when you're looking at your school's cost, ask. Just because you don't see it on the website, ask them and say, do you offer a military discount? Yes, but we don't broadcast it. We'll bring it down. Because otherwise you might throw away a school that could be a legitimate option that you might want, but they don't all put it on their website. So, and they don't all do it. So a lot of people are like, I'm in the military, they'll give me a discount, right? I'm like, no, not necessarily. Anything else?
Awesome.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Round of applause.